Hello, this is History Happened Everywhere.
The Verdict.
This is our review podcast of last week's episode, Liechtenstein, in which our friend and mentor, Paul Dersley, casts his judgmental eye on last week's efforts. So if you haven't heard it, go back and have a listen, or be prepared for spoilers ahead.
How do you feel about a cow? Do you like a cow?
Very tasty.
Have you ever milked a cow?
No.
Have you ever milked anything?
My mother?
Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere, The Verdict. My name is Ryan Weir and I'm here in the studio with my good friend and tormented soul, Peter Goddard.
I am here.
You are here. And on the phone is our lovely, very handsome Paul Dersley.
Felicitations.
Felicitations. See how sexy that sounds?
I'd say pompous, but...
How you doing, Paul? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Very comfortable. I'm relaxing.
What do you relax on? I imagine like a chaise longue.
No, it's a chair that's a bit like an Eames chair, but not as expensive.
Do you have a butler fanning you or feeding you grapes?
I have something in my bathroom called a toilet butler.
I mean, you're going to have to explain what a toilet butler is. I don't know what that is.
Well, it's just something where you put the lavatory rolls and as a storage, and then you have the live one on the go at the top.
Oh, so it's not electric. It doesn't sort of like follow you around or wipe your bottom for you.
No. My expectations of a butler are much more than just replacing a toilet roll, to be honest with you. It feels hugely disappointing given the advert of it as a butler of some kind.
I wanted to iron my toilet paper before it hands it to me on a silver platter.
Dry you off with a waft of dry, warm air.
Hey, Paul, have you ever been to Japan where they've got those little toilets, like robot toilets?
Yes, I have.
Have you used a robot toilet?
I have used a robot toilet in non-robot mode.
Okay,
You turned off all the advantages of the modern conveniences that it was offering you.
Well, yeah, it's just a glorified bidet, and we all know about bidets.
Do we? What do you mean? What should we know about bidets?
No, I tried to get it to work and take a picture of it, but it doesn't without the weight on it. So I then put my foot on the seat, and then the little stalk thing came out and squirted the water up.
Are you talking about the seat or yourself?
Well, there's a shop in London, actually, in Clerkenwell that sells them. They're called Totos.
All right, so why don't you get one?
I'm not going to spend $7,000 on a toilet. The latest ones will analyse your stool and tell you what you're eating and whether it's good or bad for you.
I mean,
I
could
know
tell
the answer to that.
I know what I'm eating. I want it to tell me nice things. Like, give me a little fortune at the end.
Yes.
Right. I don't know how we got onto
I don't
this
know how you
topic.
transition back onto
I'm going
course.
to find something. So we're here to talk not about Japanese toilets, Paul. We're here to talk about Liechtenstein or Liechtenstein
Or
Liechtenstein.
Yes, I actually took you to bed and listened to it this week.
Really? Okay.
I listened to it in bed so I could fall asleep if it was a bit boring, but I stayed awake.
Oh, that bodes well.
Good news.
That is good news. What was a highlight? What stood out to you? What was new? And what did you already know?
Do you know, I really like your little plays in this one.
It was like a little play, this one. Often we do sketches, but for some reason the punchline didn't come to us for the market one. So we just thought, well, we'll just play it for...
We just followed it through, really.
the logic through. The devil really did take him to hell. So tell us, though, like, what stood out facts-wise? Was there anything there that you weren't aware of? I'm guessing you would have known about fiefdoms and...
I honestly thought it was a Grand Duchy. But then on reflection, yes, it was a principality, because funnily enough, prince is less important than duke, so a principality would be smaller than a duchy, which I did shout at the radio just before you said Dersley will say something about that.
Yeah, we're getting the hang of you.
We just get that prickle on our neck. That you said that a duke was more important than a prince.
Yes. In continental things, yes, it is.
How strange.
But what's it determined by? Is it the amount of land you have, or just your relatedness to the king? What's the determinant of princeness versus dukeness?
Well, generally, it's the size of your holding. So a king would have a lot of land, and then the next one would be like a grand duke. Then I think it goes king, grand duke, prince, duke. I think, but we don't have the grand duke on the English nobility.
I feel like they could have gone a more easier way. They could have had sort of like area manager. Like
regional sub-manager.
But obviously not manager. Just change it to prince or something. Sub-prince, assistant to the sub-prince. I'd like to make prime prince within the next 5 years.
I'd like to be an archprince if possible. That doesn't exist. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we went off on a flight of fancy there.
Yes, I gathered that.
Do you know anything about Bregenz and Lake Constance? The lake that links, the Rhine.
I know about Lake Constance. Yes, it's a lake in Switzerland.
That's right.
Sort of considered the start of the Rhine, but it isn't, because there's an inflow, which is the bit that borders Liechtenstein.
But it's also where Germany gets most of its drinking water from.
So Switzerland could hold Germany to ransom.
I mean, I obviously it wasn't
Briefly, I would imagine.
wasn't part of my major research, but I looked into it just because it was at the end of the Rhine. But that's not Liechtenstein. So I'm going to ask you a question, Paul.
Yes.
You find yourself as a peasant in those days.
Unlikely.
Unlikely, but how are you going to how are you going to work your way out of it? Like, we gave a few options there. You could marry into nobility. You could try and weasel your way in by sort of hanging around the noble courts. You could just fake it till you make it.
I think the fake it would be the best one, wouldn't it? Give it a go.
All right, in our little threesome, Pete clearly is the peasant.
I'm the peasant. I'm not even the peasant. I'm the serf.
I think you could be both.
Thanks for believing in me, Ryan.
I think you could. You've got the.
I think you could be both the serf and the peasant,
I think
Peter.
with
All right.
some work, you could get to peasant.
Thank you for teaching me to believe.
So, Paul, then that just leaves me and you. Which one of us is going to be the nobility? Which of us is going to be the king? Or, wild card, which one of us could be a monk or an abbot?
I thought we already said that I'd be a pervy monk.
A pervy monk. You would be the pervy monk.
We did establish that.
We did. See, I think I'd be Ryan of Weir. Ryan de Veer.
Oh, de Veer.
De Veer, yeah, which is where the Weir name originates, apparently.
Is it? Oh, yeah, because...
according to the cheap thing I bought off the internet, yeah.
Okay, because...
Why would that lie?
De Veer is the surname of the Earl of Oxford.
Well, maybe I'm related.
Should go round.
Yeah,
Claim your birthright.
It's better than Peter Goatherd.
I was just thinking about your statement about the Liechtenstein national anthem. That's quite interesting, because you know that tune has been used for quite a few countries' national anthems. It used to be the national anthem of Prussia before it became Germany. And the odd thing was, the current national anthem of Germany used to be the national anthem of Austria-Hungary. So that's all quite weird. And
This doesn't sound that weird, though, to be honest. If you're talking about Prussia, and then you're talking about Germany, and then you're talking about the UK or England and the monarchy, there's a German connection there, isn't there?
I suppose, yeah, there is. And I think it's also used in Norway as the royal anthem. And as you say, in America, it's "My Country, 'Tis of Thee."
So my question is, I mean, I don't wish to sound critical, but it's a terrible tune. It's such a dirge. It's not exciting to sing.
Well, it is a dirge, and they're not really sure who wrote it. But the thing at the moment is that they think it's probably French, and it was probably written as a tune to glorify Louis XIV after he had a successful anal fistula operation.
What? Wait, he had an anal fissure. They fixed it, and so they created a song to celebrate.
Yes, they sort of wrote a celebratory song, and
Could they not leave the guy just some privacy?
That was no, God, no, not in that time. If you were the king, everything you did was in public.
But
I'm not sure I'd commission a song for my.
Well, there's
fistulous.
also a tool that was developed for this thing. I don't know whether you've ever seen it. It looks like an incredibly vicious instrument.
One of my favourite songs commemorating strange things is, I don't know if you're familiar with the funicular song.
No.
So in the city of Naples, they had a funicular installed.
Which is what?
It's like a railway that goes up a hill, basically. So it's a cable car come railway.
Trust Ryan not to know what a funicular was.
And that's what a funicular is. So in Naples, they had a funicular, right? So then I don't know who the composer was, but there's this whole opera, or not a whole opera, but there's an operatic song called Funicular. It's like da 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 funiculi funicula, and it's this whole song just going. Look,
song.
We got a local train.
I'm going to play it right now.
All right.
So I was at school once, and the
Once?
teacher. Well, yeah, once.
Clearly,
That's
not
one of the days where I was
You don't
there.
know what a funicular is.
The teacher played a classical music song and asked the class, "Does anybody know what this is?" And everyone's hands was down. And I raised my hand proudly and I said, "That's the William Tell Overture." And she looked at me and went, "How the hell did you know that?" Because it was me.
Lone Ranger.
No, it was because it was on a Disney cartoon where Mickey Mouse is playing like during a storm. And as he's flicking through the pages, it said William Tell Overture on the score. Won some house points for Gryffindor.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we've really got under the skin of Liechtenstein today.
All right, let's bring it back. Pete's chastised us rightly. Okay, so you are a business consultant in your day-to-day life, isn't that right? A business analyst?
Yes.
Yeah. So you are dragged into a monastery by the abbot, and he says to you, "I need help. I need business advice." What advice would you give to the monks?
What would I tell the abbot? I would say, well, why don't you sell your herbal liqueur? Oh, we'd call it Benedictine. That'll be good.
So what is Benedictine?
I don't know. I've never had it. I think it's like a herbal liqueur, but I think it was supposedly medicinal.
Is it like that thing? I don't know, and I don't really want to say this out loud, but I will. Have you heard of, in Hungary, they have unicum?
No, I've not heard of that.
That is a herbal liqueur that is...
Gross.
Yeah, absolutely. I would drink really almost any drink, and unicum is on my list of things I do not ever wish to drink again. Only surpassed by one other thing, which was asparagus schnapps from not Oslo. What's the capital of Sweden? That place. Stockholm.
Asparagus
But unicum
schnapps.
is disgusting.
Well,
yeah, it was really bad.
Which 50% are you in?
I'm in the 50% who should not have ordered asparagus schnapps at the end of a meal.
Because that's one of the things, isn't it? There's a gene that 50% of people do and 50% don't. And if you've got that gene, your pee smells exactly of asparagus.
I have the gene.
If you don't, it doesn't. I have it as well, yeah.
I've now drawn us away from Liechtenstein. Sorry, I failed in my task there.
Back to Liechtenstein.
Back to Liechtenstein again. Right, okay.
Cheese-wise, what do you like
that
cheese?
cheese, yeah.
Sudakis.
I like cheese, but you're sort of wondering the horrible stuff they're serving it with. They're sort of they're not making a thing of it, are they?
Like black bread and vinegar and a punch in the face.
I don't mind the black. The punch in the face wasn't there. That was just if you were a serf, just in general.
in life.
Come over here.
But yeah, as a dinner, onions, cheese, which sounds okay. Cheese and onions.
Well,
sounds all right.
that's a ploughman's lunch, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Potato, they cook it with, just have it with. Yeah, it seems like it was a staple though. Like from everyone, everyone was having sudakis. I guess because it lasted.
You're not going to go, what do we have tonight? I don't know, fancy Thai tonight, are you?
Also,
it's going to be black bread and sudakis.
Yeah, and it's made with Heimilch.
Hamish. Is that Scottish?
Heimilch. I want to try some proper Alp cheese now.
Yeah, why didn't you get some? Usually when you
looked.
talk about stuff like that, you get something.
Yeah, Brexit seems to be halting much in the way of imports at the moment, so it was a trouble to find it. But if anyone listening has an ounce of or a slice of sudakis and feels like sending it on to us, sauerkäse, please feel free. We'd love to try it.
Yeah, you feel it's probably a specialist market.
I think there's a thing about these kind of things that you grow up on, isn't there? They're sort of abstract, objective deliciousness aside. Things that you were fed as a child, your sort of comfort foods are, I'm poorly. Some people have baked beans. Some people have, I don't know, wonton noodle soup. Those things that you were fed as a child when you weren't very well are the things you never stop wanting to go home to.
Oxtail soup, which is disgusting, but I'll still drink it.
Yes, tasty.
I like oxtail soup.
I like mulligatawny, which is like oxtail soup, but just spicier.
What really surprised me was quite how many years it took me to realise that oxtail soup was made of the tail of an ox.
That sounds like something
Even though
I
it was
would say.
right there on the tin.
But it's mainly flour, isn't it?
Flour?
Is it? Isn't that?
Is
Are
it?
you thinking of bread?
All right, cool. So let's get to the bit because I want to know my grade. How have I done this week?
Oh, Ryan, it's so difficult.
It's not. You just give me a really good grade.
You were given twice as long for a tiny little country.
That wasn't my fault. Pete took over. I should get bonus points for having been bullied.
No bonus points.
C.
A C.
Yes.
That's okay.
See, that's a passing grade.
It's
That's a passing grade.
What could I have done better? What would have lifted me out of the C into a B?
More about business in Liechtenstein.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about money and money lending at one point, but it was just too much for this episode. And it was more sort of along the lines of finance rather than business. So
Yeah, because I suppose that was interesting because it's quite close to Venice, isn't it? And Venice was sort of Venice and Florence were the financial capitals at the time. Of course, we had the florin up until 1971, didn't we?
I didn't know that.
The 10p piece was called a florin.
But that started in Florence in this period of time.
Yes, that was where it got the name from, and like the Dutch guilder is florin because the symbol for the Dutch guilder was FL. Now, sort of all these currencies are related. Like the mark was an English currency for a long while.
Now I'm thinking about the Hungarian forint is probably
Same thing. Yeah, the same thing.
as well.
The other one you get in a lot of countries is crown, corona.
Oh, Corona, yeah.
Which is crown, and we used to have crowns and half crowns. It was just a name given to a specific amount of money, just as a mark was a name given to a specific amount of money. Now, I can't remember. A mark was either 2/3 of a pound or 100 shillings. And 100
thirds of a pound.
Well, 2/3 of a pound, it would be 160 pennies.
Yeah.
Or the other one, a mark was 100 pennies. I can't remember which it was. So if it was 100 pennies, it would be, 8 and 4pence. Why can't we go back to proper money now we're out of Europe?
I think it's because it was idiotic and difficult and confusing.
No, it wasn't. It's much more logical.
You've just explained why, because it doesn't make any sense to have 160 coins be a coin. Just have 100 coins and that's it.
Yes, but 160 is a much better number to divide than 100, isn't it?
Is it?
Just as 240 is. List the factors of 240. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12.
I know these numbers. I've heard.
What
of
are
these
the
numbers.
What are the factors of 100?
In a post Brexit Britain, I'm not going to the shop and being told that it's 8, 5, 4 and 6pence and a half, and expected to understand what the flipping heck that means.
No. Because you'd have been brought up with it, so it would have just been natural.
Yes, no, I get that once you're brought up with something, it's natural. What I don't get is that this is a reason to go back to that system.
But it's a better system. It was odd that when they decided to use the dollar as the currency of America, they used a decimal currency, which was very unusual at the time.
Well, they've resisted all other aspects of decimalisation ever since, haven't they?
Well, yeah, it's because even stocks were measured in 30 seconds. So you had, 30 seconds, sixteenths, eighths, quarters, halves.
Just back to pieces of 8, aren't you?
Again, yeah, and so this is why those monetary systems were used, because they were better systems for that.
And that's why none of them remain to this day.
I think they do in Burma.
Pirate novels. Burma, okay. Well, Burma, we're watching out for you guys because you've got that better system.
The only non-decimal currency left now, which is sad.
I love my Liechtenstein, eating the cheese we
and
make.
Wine.
Liechtenstein, that would have been better than what I said.
Do it again.
My land of Liechtenstein, making Alp cheese and wine. Land of the
free.
Well, they're not. They're all serfs.
That's how you go out. That's how you go out on a high with a Liechtenstein episode.
I'm going to have to sit down now.
He's just saluting.
He couldn't help himself. He heard the tune. He was up and saluting.
Your Majesty.
Of course I wasn't.
Well, Paul, thank you very much for joining us again this week on another thrilling episode, yet vaguely wandering episode of The Verdict.
The Verdict.
Paul, thank you again. Seriously, we absolutely love having you on as our critic and reviewer. You're spot on, as always. A C is a suitable grade for my very middling episode of Liechtenstein.
Well, there are reasons, aren't there? But
no, it's fine. I accept it. I've spent my life getting C grades. I'm a C grade kind of guy.
Oh dear, how sad.
Yeah, how sad indeed. But we'll be back this time next week on History Happened Everywhere, The Verdict. In the meantime, if you're listening to this podcast and you're enjoying it, do get in touch. You can reach out to us at all of the social media normal places, Instagrams and Twitters and Facebooks and LinkedIn's at hhepodcast. And just get in touch. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Tell Paul where he's right, where he's wrong. He loves being told when he's wrong.
He loves being communicated with, actually, in all possible ways. Do come in with your commentary.
Not.
Yeah, do not, under any circumstances, write with commentary or questions for Paul at hhepodcast@gmail.com. Don't do that. That would be terrible.
That's right. And that brings us to the end. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back with another History Happened Everywhere very soon, and then The Verdict to follow. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks very much. Speak soon.
You've been listening to
History happened everywhere.
The verdict. Do you know, I really like your little plays in them. In this one, I liked your evil voice. I don't know who you modelled that on, though. I think the evil characters are always the best ones. The interesting thing is, you might wish to capture this, but you won't, is if you think about three things: London to Los Angeles, London to Tokyo, London to Cape Town, which is the furthest? Cape Town.